Hi guys, my name is Amanda Rosenbaum. I am a BCBA and a COBA, but that's an Ohio thing. So it's nice to meet you guys. This is just a quick recording of prompting. I want to do a quick training on prompting. It's one of the training sessions I did a little bit ago, a couple weeks back, and I didn't record the training live as I have been now moving forward. So I wanted to kind of go back, record this one, and kind of have this in your video bank. So if you're watching this, you may be a new behavior technician, or maybe somebody who missed that training that day. Either way, it's nice to meet you. Today, we're going to just quickly talk about prompting, what it is, and how to use it. Do that every time I hit the wrong button. Okay, so prompting, what is it? Prompting is when we're adding our help to a skill. So prompting is not a word for a skill. It's not one of our verbal operants. Prompting is just help. It's just one of those ABA funny words that we made up our own thing for. It just means help. We're helping a child complete a task. We always want to use least to most, which we're going to talk about in training. And it can also be used as an antecedent intervention. But again, we'll talk about that a little bit more in the training. So when do we use each prompt? First, let's talk about how visuals are literally everywhere. So visuals, visual cues, visual prompts are your most independent form of prompt out there. You and I use them daily. If you're out at a restaurant before COVID and you feel like you need to use the restroom, so you kind of look around, you're looking for a visual cue. You're looking for a visual prompt of where the restroom is, and then you can follow the signs. If you are maybe lost in a new store and you're trying to get out, maybe you're at the mall and you're trying to get back out into the main mall, you might look for exit signs so you can figure out how to get out of where you are. That's a visual prompt. You and I use them constantly. Like I said, it's the most independent form of a prompt help out there. What's our last resort? You really want your second to last resort to be that hand over hand, that full physical. Now, common misconception. Some people feel that verbal prompts, verbal cues, are the most independent level of prompting out there. That's actually incorrect. Children, people, living organisms actually become very dependent on verbal cues. I have seen many kids in my time in the ABA world that know the steps to put on their shoes, but cannot complete them unless they are verbally saying the cues to themselves. Meaning they were taught so much that first I put my toes in, slide my foot, push my heel down, tighten laces, crisscross laces. They were taught so repetitively like that, they can't have one without the other. It became a different type of ABA term in their brains. So that's why we actually don't want to use verbal cues too often. You don't want to repeat the SD verbally too much. Try to use nonverbal gestures. But again, we'll talk about that more in the training. So this is an awesome, I'm going to move my little image out of the way. There we go. This is an awesome visual. I know that you guys have this at the clinic. Please get a printout of this, laminate it, put it on your wall, keep it for yourself, hug it at night, whatever you want to do with it. But these are your levels of prompting all the way over here. I was going to do left and right, and then I know we're in a camera, so I'm not going to do that. The purple is your most invasive. That's the last resort because it's your most invasive. That's your verbal step-by-step command, followed by your full physical, your partial physical, your model. If you've never heard of a model prompt, if you wanted somebody to pick up a pencil and hold it the right way, you would model it like I am right now. I'm modeling holding a pen or a pencil with the correct placement. So you're physically acting as the prompt. You act it out and you're acting as the prompt. Gesture, I always do like the two-finger Disney point gesture. You're gesturing to what comes next. You're giving a head nod. You're giving like the eye roll, like gesturing to what's coming. And then the visual, which is what we talked about before, those visual cues. This is an awesome cheat sheet. I hope you guys have it. Please try to get it in your rooms. Please have it on your person so that way you can refer to it. So levels of prompting, like I said, a model prompt, you're showing a child, a person, anybody, you're showing them what they need to do by doing it yourself. So if the SD, the demand, the command is clap your hands and they're not clapping. Now we might need to, at some point, work our way up to fully physically grabbing their hands and clapping. But before we do that, we can do this. So the whole thing together would be, hey, clap your hands. No response, no response. Now I'm going to prompt and add my help and see if you copy at that point. I'm doing a model prompt of what I want. Okay, so model prompt, you and yourself are acting as the helping cue. Gestural, like I talked about, two-finger Disney point, gesture to what they need to do next. If it's washing hands, you might touch the cold water knob so that they know to turn it on. You might touch the towel so they go over to dry their hands. It's pointing, tapping, touching, head nodding, elbow nudging, whatever you need to indicate what the correct response or the next step in a sequence is. There are no verbals. Nope. So quiet mouth on your end. You're not going to say anything. You're just going to gesture to it. So this does not count. Go over there. Nope, because my verbals were in it. It's just your gesture. Partial physical. So this video is one that after we get off my quick video, please go back, click on the YouTube links that I have. I have some practice links at the end. Go ahead and go back and look at those. I don't want to waste too much time with this video getting too long. But that is a YouTube link that's going to show you exactly what I'm talking about here, which is our partial physical. That's a nudge or a tap on a part of the student or person's body in the correct direction of what you want them to do, the desired task, the desired end game. A great one is, let's say that you need them to maybe receptively find something. You might do one of those, like a little tap ski in the right area, or one of those guys if you need them to kind of move their arm forward to turn on a faucet or turn off a faucet. I'm using a lot of functional living skills examples. That's just where my brain is. They're not all functional living skills. It could be a tabletop activity, could be a puzzle, could be just a receptive command. Anything. You're just giving a little tap or a little nudge. This is not partial physical. Sometimes people do this and then like, well, I let go, Amanda. No, that's not partial physical. Partial is that tap, that push, that gesture. I'm going to make this very clear. You're not tapping where you're slapping. You're not pushing hard. Like, we're obviously being very gentle in this. It's just a slight physical. Now we have that physical to physical contact, that slight movement. So it's almost like a gesture plus a touch will get you partial physical. Again, go back and look at that video after I'm done kind of giving you my spiel on my video. This image is like a great image for full physical, right? It's hand over hand helping you complete a task. This is, I am going to like hand over hand do it with you so that we get it completely done. That's a full physical. Now, there are times where we, of course, need to do full physical prompting. We need to do hand over hand guidance, especially if a child has poor fine motor skills or you know that's something you're working on. Totally makes sense. Make sure that you're always being gentle. Make sure you're being courteous. Remember to kind of stand behind your client so that it's more from their perspective with your hands guiding their hands. Yeah, be gentle, be kind. Like if you're touching your client at any point, please make sure you're conscientious of those, even though you're trying to prompt them through something. On top of that, be aware if your client is aversive to touch. If your client is aversive to touch, or maybe you have a note somewhere from a BCBA, all of their program, I would assume that they are like super aversive to touch due to sensory issues. Partial physical and full physical are not going to be your levels of prompting. You're probably never going to use them if you have a kiddo who's really aversive to touch. Think about how punishing that could be for that kid. So just make sure that when you're working with a client or if you're covering another client, you're aware of these questions before you try to add this level of prompting or help into their program. But full physical prompting can be very beneficial. It can definitely help with functional living skills, what my brain's kind of been on this whole time, especially with dressing and things like that. You do need to kind of hand over hand help your kiddo complete a task. So verbal. Here we are, that verbal prompting, so that verbal line of helping. We're verbally saying each step. That's how verbal is supposed to work. You know, come here, sit down in your chair, take your shoes off, hands on the table, you know, all things like that. Like I was doing with the shoe before, you know, toes in first, heel down, tighten shoe, crisscross. Those are all verbal prompts, and those are all step-by-step guiding you through what is supposed to happen through your voice. That can get very difficult to fade out. It is very easy for your child to become prompt dependent on those verbal cues because I'm going to be honest with you, right? Let's talk about, you know, your full physical, your hand over hand, you're guiding your kiddo. Well, you can very easily, especially if you're standing behind them, like I just told you, kind of like take your hands off a little and let them do a little bit more on their own, right? Now you're fading yourself out. Then you kind of back up a little bit more and maybe you're just nudging them in the right direction. Great. Oh my God, you're doing awesome. Now you're just kind of like gesturing over to what they need to do. Beautiful. Now you don't even have to prompt at this point because they're kind of getting the steps and the sequences, but you notice maybe they're messing up a little bit. So you add one of those visual task analyses on how to wash their hands. And now the kiddo's looking at that as their visual prompt to know what comes next. You just did an entire sequence through my very quick dramatization of washing your hands with your client, and you didn't once use verbal prompting. You used hand over hand, then you faded yourself out, then you used partial, then you used gestural, and then you added a visual, and at no point did you use your voice. Of course, because you're a great RPT, you would be reinforcing and praising your client, so don't have to worry about that, but you're never using your voice. You were able to fade your prompts out, and your kiddo is not prompt dependent, and you never use verbals. Well, if I'm using verbals and I'm saying, okay, Oprah, turn on the water, turn off the water, Oprah, get soap, how do I phase that out? Now, yeah, the argument can be made that I go back in steps and start the sequence I just said to you, but really, how do I get my voice out of that situation? You can do partial verbal, but that sounds kind of not socially significant, right? That would sound a little weird if I'm trying to partially verbally say all those things instead of just giving her the sequence verbally. That's why we always want to be very, very cautious as to when we are using the verbal narrative and how we are using the verbal narrative. We don't want our kiddos to become prompt dependent. We want them to be as independent as possible. Visual, here we are. And look, it's washing hands. That was kind of funny because I actually didn't remember what this picture was going to be. So a visual picture, card, item, whatever, that serves as the reminder, the help, the prompt for your student to know what's coming next or what is the desired task. What should they be doing? This is a perfect one where it is the task analysis of them washing their hands. Now you don't need your verbals because you could even gesture to that task analysis if they kind of get lost and don't think to look at it themselves. So this is a good example of what a visual prompt is. So there are two pillars of fading yourself out because nothing is better than when you can fade yourself out of prompts. Why? Because anytime you're using prompting, that is technically a minus on your data sheet. So a plus on your data sheet means they are able to do that skill independently without any help. Woo, great. If you use any level of these promptings, what does that mean? They were not able to do it independently without your help. Therefore, a minus would be indicated on your data sheet, and then you would also add in the level of prompting used, so we can know if you're starting to fade yourself out. So 2 pillars, you want to stand behind your student because you're not in their line of vision and you're doing stuff from their perspective. Those are 2 big ones. And you're staying as quiet as you can be. You're not adding your vocals when they're not needing. Again, standing behind, you're helping without being seen. You're helping from their perspective. You can phase out naturally. I love to do that with my kiddos where I just kind of slowly back up and they have no idea, kind of like the riding a bike without training wheels and someone lets go of you, you don't even know. That's the same idea. Great examples, dressing, brushing your teeth, really any skills that you need to be working on from their perspective. That helps. Staying quiet. Your verbal cues, obviously, like we talked about ad nauseum before, they're difficult to phase out. We want to caution against those. Your verbal cues for tasks that do not elicit a verbal response can create prompt dependency. Now, that's like a crazy sentence, so we're going to break that down, especially if you are newer to the world of ABA, or if that just sounded like a hodgepodge of words. So, verbal cues, verbal prompting for a task that does not elicit need a verbal response back will create prompt dependency. So, if I need you to touch a picture of a horse, and I say touch horse, my SD, and you touch your nose, okay? If I verbally prompt you to continue to try to touch horse, I'm now going to create a link, a pairing in your brain that makes you prompt dependent on my voice to find horse. Because you touching a picture of a horse does not need any verbals back to me. We don't have to talk about it. So I should say, touch horse, and if you touch your nose, now I'm If you touch your nose and you're this far off, I probably will have to full physically prompt you back down to horse to help. Or I'll gesture to horse, or I'll partial physically move you to horse, right? Or I'll model it and I'll do it myself and touch horse to get your finger off your nose and touch horse, right? So if I don't need a verbal response back from you, that's me just adding words to a situation that doesn't need words. So if I ask you, what's your birthday? You need to give me words back or some form of communication. Let's assume you're vocal verbal. You got to give me words back. Okay. That absolutely warrants verbal prompting, right? There are other levels of, you could use visual prompting. You could use all those others. Yes. But that's you giving me a verbal response back. When it doesn't need a verbal response back, please caution yourself on how much verbals you're using. Use next to none. If you've got a kiddo who's dancing around in the corner and you're supposed to be doing tabletop and you have not yet gone over and gently redirected them to the chair and tried to increase their motivation and all those other things we'll save for a different training, then you're wasting your time if you're just sitting there saying, come on back to the table, come sit down, time to sit down, time to sit down. What him sitting or her sitting requires no verbal back and forth. So why am I flooding him with verbals? Okay, it will create prompt dependency. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that paragraph a little bit more. If you have questions on it, if you want to talk more about it, if you want to see it in action, please tell me. Okay, I just wanted to let you know how important that was. Why do we phase out? Like, why is phasing out important at all? You're gradually exiting the picture. Isn't that our goal? Like, we don't want to always be helping these kiddos with things. We want them to do it independently. We're slowly giving them back independence for their skills. We're teaching them how to be, the best version of themselves that they can be. I mean, what's greater than that? So the overall goal with your prompt phase out, each time you're helping them with a skill, you're standing behind them, you're helping a little bit less, and you're never wanting to create that prompt dependency. You're definitely trying to, in a way, work yourself out of a job so that they can do these skills and these tasks independently. Questions, comments, guys? I know I kind of flew through that a little bit. It's just because it's a pre-recorded video. I wish I recorded the live version. Everyone had really great questions. So please, if you have questions or comments, you can absolutely direct them to me. You can email me. I'd love to, if you're not my direct supervisee, I'd love to still hear from you. I know your direct BCBA would also love to hear your questions and love to help you through that. I know you have a lead RBT as well, and I know that you have Tara there. So you have a lot of great resources that you can direct your questions or comments to. If the question kind of gets jumbled or anything, please let me know. If it's a concern with this training, also please let me know. I just wanted the opportunity to kind of refresh that prompting since it's so important, and make sure you kind of have this video in your video bank. But please do not be afraid to ask me, Joelle, Tara, your lead RBT, any of us about any questions you might have. And if you end up having more than one question, please come right to me. I'd love to help. These videos are practice videos. Please go check these out. Please run through the practice. The first one is talking about, kind of, I'm doing all this levels of prompting, and I want you to see the different levels. I want you to kind of try and guess which levels I'm doing when, kind of really get into it, see it in action, and see if this training, looking back at the training, can help you identify what prompting I'm doing when. The second video is what went wrong. I'm actually using my daughter in these training videos, and she's a precocious 3-year-old, almost 4-year-old. So she loves to kind of just go off script. So it gave us a great opportunity for me to kind of go off script with her and show you some mistakes that I made. And they were made on purpose. But it's good for you guys to see. So kind of try and identify, what did I do wrong? What did I stray away from in the training? What was I not following through? So give those a watch, work on those, and let me know if you guys have any questions. Good luck, and I hope you guys have a great day.